Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the first opposition preview of the season. Chelsea versus Liverpool Sunday at Stamford Bridge. It's always a spicy occasion, but with all the explosion of news today, doing with Lavia, Caicedo, it's gone up a little bit. It's notched up a little bit here. The stakes at the moment for the game. There's loads and loads to get into. Chelsea and Liverpool both desperate for midfield reinforcements. At the moment, you know, the game on Sunday is looking like the midfields could be pretty empty, but they could also be pretty stacked either side for one team if the transfers go through in time. But of course, Chelsea have already signed Leeds United's Tyler Adams today. Liverpool still looking for Lavia, Chelsea looking for Lavia as well. Potentially, are there transfer games going on? Who knows? But there's so much to get into. I'm delighted to be joined by Liverpool fan Errol. Bro, thanks so much for coming. Appreciate it. Mate, I tell you what, this game it's leveled up a little bit now, isn't it?
It's the battle of the bastards all over again. We're both screaming for a daddy in midfield, and we're like, come on. We both need something to drop for us in this transfer window. I think both fan bases are like holding on for dear life at the minute. And last night, the news dropped that Chelsea had submitted a bid. I woke up to the news this morning that Southampton had rejected that bid. It all seems like, as you mentioned just off before we went live, it seems like there are a lot of transfer politics going on at the minute. There are a lot of mind games. There's a lot of mental maths. I've speculated that maybe, you know, that a couple of the lads have been on the phone to each other and said, right, we want this player for this much. We're only prepared to pay that much. And you want him for that. So we'll do you a favor. And there's a little bit of back and forth. And maybe because, you know, we're bigger clubs than Southampton and Brighton, respectfully, we're deciding to almost join in arms to help each other get both of our deals respectively over the line. That's a nice way of thinking about it. The other way is Chelsea are just out here to do us dirty.
Mate, do you know what's weird, right? This Lavia thing, obviously your boys have had 2, maybe 3 bids rejected. Now you went 45 million was your most recent bid. We went in with 48 million last night. I'm sort of thinking, if Southampton's asking price is 50 million, and from a Chelsea perspective, we want the player, I think he'd be open to joining Chelsea. He'd be open to joining Liverpool as well, with the Joe Shields connection at the club with Chelsea, taking him to City, taking him to Southampton as well. He obviously knows him well, so that kind of gives us a little bit of an advantage there. Potentially, of course, he'd go to Liverpool. He'd play in both teams, might get more minutes at Liverpool. But from a Chelsea perspective, for me, the asking price is 50 million pounds. If you want the player and you've bid 48 million, why have you not just gone in with an extra 2 mil that you know is going to be accepted? So for me, I don't get it. Like, when you're spending 48 million pounds, what difference does 2 million pounds make at the end of the day? You could have an extra 2 million in add-ons for a 50 mil total package. So that's why I'm not saying that Chelsea don't want Lavia, but you know, this is a deal where, well, we could easily have just got a bid accepted if we just offered 2 million more. So, I mean, where do you stand on this one, mate? Do you think it's just Chelsea playing games, trying to scare Brighton a little bit for the Caicedo thing? Liverpool are moving a little bit slow as well, aren't they?
We are. This is very un-Liverpool-like in terms of how we're conducting our transfer business. I will never get on a camera, especially, and make out that Liverpool are always big spenders and we're always going to put our hands in our pocket, because we don't typically operate like that. And, you know, love it or hate it, that's the reality, and you've kind of got to live within reality sometimes. I think people online can tend to forget that. But when it comes to how we operate within the market, we've got our own like trademark or our own USP, where you know that when Liverpool mean business, they've operated or they presented themselves to the selling club in a particular way. The multiple bids approach that we've done, and especially within this public nature of the multiple bids, to me just doesn't sit right with us. It feels like, I think I've had people telling me that it's Southampton that are leaking the news as well, which would piss me off if I was in the Liverpool camp. But essentially, they've let it know, and it's become public knowledge that Liverpool have been in multiple times. My thing is, from a valuation point of view, if they've slapped 50 million as the asking price, last season Liverpool got into panic stations. We got to the back end of the transfer window. We hadn't strengthened the midfield area in the way that the manager probably understood that he needed to. He probably needed to bite the bullet there when he missed out on Tchouaméni. He probably thought we'd get away with it, and then realised very quickly, no, we need to go out of our way to get someone in midfield. They then went and done a panic loan solution in Arthur Melo. Now, Arthur Melo's loan deal to Liverpool for that one season, bearing in mind he only played 14 senior minutes for the club in his entire year with us, it probably worked out that we paid him close to 7 or 8 mil. Now, when you're talking about Liverpool's final bid for Lavia, you're sitting there thinking, well, we threw away that extra 7 mil last year on a player that only played 14 million. So why, again, in a similar situation that you're saying, why, for the sake of the extra 2 or the sake of the extra 5 to 6 million pound, why do you not just slap the money down if that is the player you want? And the only justification that Liverpool seem to come out with at the moment as to why they are not prepared to do that is purely down to the fact that Lavia is 19, Stefan Bajcetic is a year younger than him, and for the valuation, Liverpool have got the money, but they do not feel that Lavia is a 50 million pound player. Now, that's their stance. My argument to that is, you're not buying a 50 million pound player for 2023. You're buying a 50 million pound player for 2025, 2026, 2027. And at that point, if he explodes, if done well, and if played correctly, and the team is successful, 50 million is you wouldn't be able to get his left foot for 50 million in 3 years' time. So that's where I don't see the math. It's not, the math's not mathing for me right now, bro. And it is very difficult. It's a very difficult pill to swallow, especially when the online fan base is imploding on itself minute by minute. That's what it seems like.
But do you know what's mad, right, as well, is that, like, I look at it, and I think from a Liverpool perspective, we'll get into Chelsea a bit later, but obviously, you know, you need a midfield reinforcements. A lot of players left, Ox, Milner, etc., to name a few. But I'm pretty sure, you'll know better than me, but I'm pretty certain that selling Fabinho and Henderson this summer, both of them, wasn't in the plans.
No.
So then Liverpool haven't planned for that, have they? So now they're a little bit short and panicking a little bit. Yes, Bajcetic is a decent player. I think he's injured, isn't he?
He is coming back. Yeah.
But how good is he? Would you say right now he's better than Lavia? I mean, I haven't really watched that much of him, but is he better than Lavia right now? It's hard to tell.
I think that's the thing. When you're looking then at valuation, I don't think we would value Bajcetic at 50 million pound, but I don't think that they think the ceilings between the two are that similar. I think Bajcetic's ceiling in comparison to Lavia's, they probably plateau out in and around the same point. If it was FIFA, you'd probably be looking high 80s, low 90s in 5 years' time type of players for their profile. The thing for the planning and the succession planning especially is, I know that Fabinho and Jordan were in the plans to go out the door this summer purely because we was linked with Ugarte before he went to PSG.
Yeah, same with us.
We was linked with him, and if you think, all right, there's a possibility that these lads go, why not go and get the lad there that we can get for a reasonable price? And we chose to let him go early in the summer because we felt as though our midfield was going to be the area that we would address first. Bear in mind, that was the area of the pitch that was getting addressed first. And all of a sudden now it's taken up the entirety of the window because we've had to deal with the incomings, which was done quite sharpish, but then we've had outgoings that have rumbled on, and now we're needing to reinforce those additional outgoings in that same area. So we've incompletely and absolutely we've literally fucked ourselves over when it comes to actually rebuilding what needed to be done in the holes that we're in and the gaps that were in our squad this summer.
I mean, do you think, mate, because looking from it from an outside perspective, obviously when Michael Edwards was at the club, Liverpool's transfer business was pretty spot on. Things like they get it right more times than not. You know, and you know, the recruitment was spot on, bringing in players for good value for money and all that, selling at the right time as well. Now that I think you've gone through 3 sporting directors since he's left, it seems to be
someone else, and then we've got this new guy.
Yeah, it seems to be a little bit like, what's going on at Liverpool? Because you normally Liverpool seems a little bit weird to me because you do quick business, get McAllister in and get Szoboszlai in, sharpish, done. But yet, when it comes to the area that needs addressing the most, there seems to be flip-flapping about. Like in terms of Lavia, you need a midfield player. Do you value him at 50 million pounds? Probably not. But you value him at 45.
Move on.
Exactly. Yeah. But you value him at 45 million pounds. And yet, as you said, you know, as we agree, you're not paying for him right now as a 50 million pound player. This guy could be a 60, 70, 80 million pound player in 2 to 3 years' time. You're paying for the player, not just for the player now, but for the player that he can be in the coming years. And I think you'd look back at 50 million quid for Lavia and think, fuck, that's good value for money. So when it comes to the positions that you think need addressing at Liverpool, they suddenly seem to be moving really slowly in the market, and it doesn't seem to make an awful lot of sense. I mean, how frustrating from a Liverpool fan perspective is it, mate, that, you know, some deals get done really quickly, but yet seemingly for the midfield that's needed addressing for quite a long time. I personally don't feel you've replaced Gini Wijnaldum in the side. How frustrating is it from a fan perspective that you're not moving fast in the market for midfield players. And how would you feel, mate, if we did beat you to Romeo Lavia?
At the moment, as I say, from a Liverpool or from my as me speaking for myself, my frustration lies with the poor planning. I don't mind if transfers take their time. I don't need to know about them. If they're going to take the time, I don't need to know. You know, the McAllister stuff, like, let's be honest, the work was done for McAllister before the window opened. Yeah. So by rights, we was talking to McAllister at the back ends of last season and having those negotiations and having those conversations, which is fine. It's all legal. You're able to do it, whatever. But when we plan and have that clear, this is the steps that we want to take, we're really good. When we've got the opportunity to be proactive, we're really good. When Liverpool, and I think even this was the case towards the end of Michael Edwards as well, when we have to be reactive, that's when Liverpool are a fish out of water, because they're not used to having to then operate on other people's terms, because we're not typically used to then now having to bend the knee to other clubs' demands. We start to feel the pressure and we struggle to then, we're not really ones to strong arm teams. We tend to try and hold like a mutual respect to say, do you know what? We respect your stance. This is our stance. We respect the guys that are in our house that are telling us that he's not worth 50 million. So respectfully, if your guys think he is, then that's fine. And you can stay over there. And we don't really entertain bidding wars. We don't want to, but I think that's why I think behind the scenes now, you've got the John Henrys and the Todd Bowleys linking up. They're on FaceTime with each other and they're saying, right, this is my strategy to get the player. This is going to be what we're going to do. And if we push to the highest end of the offering, you can just offer a little bit more and you'll get your player, then we'll get our player and everybody wins. That's the hopeful side. That's the optimistic side from me saying that's what I'd like to see. The reality is, if Chelsea was to come in now and steal Lavia from us, I genuinely think that could be the straw that breaks the camel's back in a Liverpool fan base. If I'm just like observing the online mood and the fan base in and around, I think that could be the final nail in the coffin. And I think that would, I said it from months ago, what FSG have done this summer, unbeknownst to them maybe, is they've backed themselves into a corner. They have to act in the strongest possible manner when it comes to transfers. And that to me doesn't mean you have to spend £200 million. But what it does mean is you have to identify your targets. You have to speak to your manager. You have to let the manager tell you who he wants in the squad. And then you have to go back and say, right, well, this is the best case package we can deliver for all of these players. And when you do that, go out there and attack it. And we started in that vein, but very quickly got derailed. And that's been our undoing ultimately.
Wait, sticking with midfield, let's talk about Caicedo, because like it's a madness, this saga. I mean, from a Chelsea perspective, been tracking it all summer and we're still not quite there yet. I think we will get there eventually, but I don't know when that's going to be. But we had like news last week or the week before about there'd been a mystery club, unidentified club that had bid more than Chelsea had bid for Caicedo. Now, again, that could be 81 million quid. It could just be £1 million more. We don't really know. But reportedly, mixed reports coming out today. One report coming out saying that Liverpool have bid for Caicedo, sorry. Then other reports saying that no bid's gone in. And like Bayern Munich, they've just contacted the club to find out the situation. They're aware that we're at Chelsea are at the front of the queue and it'd be pretty difficult to get Caicedo. What do you think of Liverpool making contact with Caicedo? Do you think that's as a result of our bid, or do you think they were planning that all along anyway? Do you think that's a reaction to us bidding for Lavia?
I think it is, again, acting out of reaction on a reactive basis. And I think it's a case of then almost trying to save blushes in case Lavia goes sideways, to be like, oh, well, we did have the money and we have bid for a higher player, but we've got gazumped by Chelsea. Or they want to ease out. They want an excuse. They need to have their alibi locked in so that the PR machines that are out there can spin it when, in the event that Liverpool don't get it over the line. And I'm just worried at this moment in time that this Liverpool side's got more questions than answers, mate. And we need to, time's running out. Do you know what I mean? Like Michael's saying it there, the firepower is there.
Mate, it's scary, mate. The firepower is scary. I tell you what, I look at it, it's mad. But then you look at the other way. You look at the other way for me. I watched a few Liverpool preseason games, the one against Bayern Munich in Singapore. Mate, your line is so high. Like,
so easy to expose.
It's quite easy. it's quite easy to expose. Any pacing behind, look, you'll beat a lot of teams. And I think you might see a lot of Liverpool games this season, unless that gets sorted, that finish 3-2, 4-3. I think you've got the capabilities of outscoring sides, but I also feel you're probably going to let quite a few goals in as well. I mean, we'll get onto the game shortly and the pre-season and stuff. Just from your perspective, mate, what have you made of the Caicedo saga out from the outside looking in regards to Chelsea and Caicedo? Do you believe he's a £100 million player, or do you think the market with Enzo Fernandez and Declan Rice has dictated that?
Yeah, well, yeah, that point exactly. I don't, and again, maybe this is just me, and I just live in the past in terms of mentality. No player, you'll never convince me that there's a human being out there that's worth £100 million.
It's mad, isn't
it? That's a different argument, and that's ethics and all the rest of it that comes into it. Fair enough, I get it. But I do believe that the market right now for all players has become inflated. Look at Man City. They got an offer rejected for Luis Paqueta last night, I think it was.
It's 101 million euros they bid. It's like well over 86 million pounds. It's mad.
Crazy. And again, no disrespect to West Ham. I know there's no Lawless here to really shield the no disrespect to any West Ham fans, but Paqueta's not done nothing in the game to be worth 80 odd million pounds. Like, he's just not. And I think there's a part of me that genuinely wants there to be a wage or a transfer cap on players. Yeah. I don't know how that's structured, and there have got to be cleverer people than me to kind of put all of the details in place to make that cast iron across the board, because we can't operate under one jurisdiction, but you've got Bayern, or you've got German teams, or you've got Saudi teams that can still offer crazy money. It wouldn't work. So it needs to be a universal thing within the world of sports, or within the world of football. I don't think that's any time soon. So as a result, you've kind of got to live with what it is. And as it stands, players are going for silly money. That's why, as you said before about Liverpool doing business, I wasn't mad at McAllister. I could see the sense in it. For 35 mil, I know it's a release.
Mate, it's a steal. It's an absolute steal. He's worth more what Szoboszlai's worth. He's worth, for me, he's a 70 million pound player, McAllister. That's a phenomenal piece of business. It's great. But I mean,
I think the thing with Caicedo for Hughes, though, in particular, is the fact that Brighton have done what Dortmund have done in the past. We're prepared to sell the one, or we're prepared to let this one or two go. And we knew that because as soon as Caicedo went, they got that Mohamed Daoud on a free straight in from Dortmund. So they knew that they had an adequate replacement in for him. That'll plug the gap. He might not be set the world alight, but for the level, it'll plug the gap. They are not now desperate to then go and sell Caicedo. So they have got that position of being stubborn and digging their heels in to say, you want the player, that's the price. Because we could have sold the player to Arsenal 6 months prior for 70 million, and we told them no. So now we are going to wait and hold out until, and they've probably spoke to Caicedo and said, look, we've got European football this year. You stay with us for one more season, and next season, the right club can come and get you for the right price. And
what I think he's done wrong, though, mate, is that we knew that he wanted to leave in January, right? He put his statement out on Instagram saying bye to the fans. A little bit embarrassing for him. But if you know you want to leave, right, why have him or his reps or his agents, whoever's in his camp, why have you signed a new long-term deal at Brighton with no release clause saying you can leave for a set amount of money? Like, they had a gentleman's agreement. Like, we know this is football. Gentlemen's agreements don't exist. You say that in good faith. Well, this is it. Like, oh, you can leave next summer. Of course you can't. And then Brighton are demanding 100. And as annoying as it is from a Chelsea fan perspective, if this was Chelsea and Brighton were coming for one of our players, I'd expect us to act in the exact same way. And with the way that the market's gone, I looked at the market this summer, and I think it's fair to say that Caicedo and Declan Rice, the two standout midfield players on the market. And if you're looking to really improve your midfield, you need to sign one of them. Not saying that you can't sign others to do it, but those are the standout names. Rice gone to Arsenal, fine. Caicedo, Chelsea have to get Caicedo. I know Liverpool could do with them. I know Man United could do with them as well. But the fact that we've been in the race all summer, just us really, until Liverpool, Bayern have registered interest or whatever. The fact that, we've been in conversations for months on end, and the whole point of that was to ascertain how much money they wanted for him, and then we just kind of almost get it a one and done. We've done four bids now, and the first 3 bids were all less or equal to what was rejected in January. That's not suddenly going to be accepted in the summer on a new contract. So that's where my frustration from a Chelsea point of view comes, is that we've been in these conversations. We know that they want 100 million all in. So what are we talking about? It doesn't take you months to find out how much money they want. That's probably the first thing that you find out in conversations, and then you try and have a bit of a discussion about it. So I just don't get it.
And to be fair to you, Charlie, as well, he's already given a pretty big clue. He had rejected a certain amount. So if X amount has been rejected, you've got to at least come with Y or Z to get the player over the line, because
the first bid, mate. Really, we knew 70 wasn't going to do it in January. Yeah. 70 wasn't going to do it. The first bid should have been our last bid. We should have gone in at 75 or 80, but it's not going to happen. But I mean, from your perspective, mate, what do you think of Caicedo as a player? Because I see a lot of people, not necessarily Chelsea fans, but I know a lot of fans are huge fans of him. But there's also people that are saying, well, hang on a second, 100 million quid's a lot of money. Fully get it. But at 21 years of age, he's played 46 games for Brighton. It's not a lot of games. But as we were talking about with Lavia, you're paying for not just what Caicedo is now, you're paying for his potential. And look how good he is now at 21. He's dominating Premier League midfields. He's got, for me, we've been blessed to have N'Golo Kante. He's as close to an N'Golo Kante regen as I think is out there right now. I'm not saying he's the same as Kante, but he possesses the same sort of attributes. And for me, he's the closest to what Kante has been. How do you view him? Do you rate him highly? You'd obviously take him at Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the lad a lot, because to me, what he's able to offer a team is, again, the best availability or the best attribute right now for a Liverpool centre mid is availability. Yeah. So if you've got a good injury record and you're combative and you're able to do the box to box role, or you could be specialist in a 6, you are going to be very highly sought and highly thought after. And I think he's got that attribute and that side to his game as well. I think he's an exciting player for me, because I think the ceiling with him is extremely high, and he's already that's the fundamental difference between Lavia and Caicedo from my perspective. When you take the money side of things away from them, you're just looking at the players' profiles. Lavia did well, he did relatively well last season in a struggling Southampton side that played pretty much without the ball. You know, they wasn't known for playing expansive, really building it out from the back type of football. Whereas the flip side of that was Caicedo was. So Caicedo was used to playing that. Not only was Brighton a good team last season as well, they was challenging and they could beat anyone almost on their day last season. They could take the game. And even if they couldn't beat them, they could take the game to anyone at any point last season. And that was because of the base of their midfield that they had built between McAllister and Caicedo. And I think there's always an argument for me, especially when it comes to Klopp signing midfield players, that I always look at it as any midfielder that he signed was not a project, but it was always a process. It will take you up to 4 to 6 months before I can finally start to see the best in you and see what you could be. And that happened with Fabinho. It happened with Ox before he got injured. You know, Naby, was on and off with injuries.
I'll tell you what, Ox was moving mad. Like in that Champions League run, obviously you eventually went on to win it. He picked up that injury. I think was it in that game against Barcelona?
No, it was Roma. So that was the year before. So we lost.
It was the year before.
Yeah, it was the year before we go on to actually win it.
He was playing really well.
But it took him until the turn of the year before we started to see, okay, now I see what you're trying to get from him, and it makes sense. And my issue is, if you was to just tell me that we're going to drop in Lavia, Szoboszlai, and McAllister, those 3, and expect all 3 of them to hit the ground running, and we're going to then challenge for a title as the objective, I'd be like, that's far-fetched. We've seen it take 6 months to bed in one midfielder. Now you're attempting that with a whole unit. I don't see it. Whereas the reassurance that I potentially want to lean towards would be the fact that McAllister and Caicedo already have a chemistry and an understanding. So even if you're not prepared to play the Klopp way, even if you reverted back to the Zerbi way of playing, or the or the Potter way of playing, that is still very fit for purpose in a Klopp system. you would still fit in, especially if there's two of you doing it, because you almost know the run that the other one's going to make. You can almost rely that you are on song with each other more than maybe anybody else is. And that kind of chemistry, you can't necessarily buy that. You've built it over time. So that could speed up the process from a Liverpool's perspective of getting the most out of midfield as soon as possible. Whereas I don't think we get afforded that luxury with Lavia. Lavia is, you're going to bed in and it's going to take your time and we're going to be fine. We have to understand, and that's going to take time. So we're fine with that. Whereas you could probably have higher expectations if you just drop Caicedo next to McAllister and say, like we did with Luis Diaz. When Luis Diaz came in January, I was
you weren't going to get him, were you? Because the plan was to get him in the summer, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then Tottenham said
Spurs were moving a little bit on him. Yeah.
And then all the rest of that season, I might be completely wrong, but to me it looked as if we said, play on vibes. We don't have time to bed you in, but we just know your quality. Just go and play your game. And in that season, back end of that season, it worked for us. It was good. It was explosive. It was unpredictable, and it worked. We could potentially get away with a version of that if we got a Caicedo and McAllister in midfield, because they've got a way of playing together, and it would be easier for others to learn off.
Yeah, I mean, Fabrizio just tweeting out now, just saying that, I mean, it's not really new news, but Brighton have made clear they sell Caicedo to the highest bidder. Next 24 hours is crucial. Chelsea are on it, pushing with Dream to present Caicedo on Sunday. Liverpool made contact with Brighton this morning, planning to submit formal bid in the following hours. So, according to Fabrizio, it looks like Liverpool could be submitting a formal bid. But if you aren't prepared to pay £50 million for Lavia, where's this £100 million coming from? Or have Liverpool got more money than is being let on?
The money's there, bro. The money is 100% there. And anyone who says it's not, they're just trolling. I think the thing with the money situation is the value. I said it before on a stream with Potts. It's the case of, for the age profile of Lavia, there's Bajcetic is a year younger. We don't value Bajcetic at 50 million. So it's a stretch to then value Lavia at 50 million. However, as I've said to you, in 5 years' time, forget Lavia, Bajcetic might be worth 50 million. So you're paying for that, for the potential as well. Also, on top of that, even if you say, oh, Liverpool got no money, Liverpool are skint, Liverpool are broken, and you want to run that narrative, we've just sold £50 million worth of talent anyway. So there is still at least a reserve of 50 mil. My thinking is that we've been deliberating intensively behind the scenes about whether we just apportion the 50 mil that we was going to apportion for Lavia anyway. And
back to the Caicedo fund.
And yet begrudgingly now we either pay for it begrudgingly through our nose and just pay the price, or we apportion that money with the sales money that we've just got, and all of a sudden now you're in the race to get Caicedo because you've got plus 90 million to operate with. The downside to that strategy then is, does that leave us short defensively? Whereas you might not want to pay 50 million for Lavia, but if you pay 50 million for Lavia, you've still got 50 million to go and get you a centre back as well. Does that make your squad healthier in the long run than just having one player? And I think that's where we're caught up. And I think that's where we've wasted most of our time trying to figure out which is going to be the best solution for what we need. But it's reactive planning. And when we're up against it and we're planning reactively, I think that's when we make the most mistakes. I'm not saying that whichever one we buy is going to be a mistake, but you're more likely to make a mistake when you prep this way.
Do you know what I think as well, mate, is that sometimes you got to act quick and act smart in the market. And from a Chelsea perspective or a Liverpool perspective, midfield, we probably both need two signings in there. If there is a possibility this summer to get Caicedo and Lavia, then you do it and you find the money, because then that means you don't need to sign any midfield players for at least the next 2 or 3 seasons. So yes, it's a big initial outlay, but you save yourself going to the next summer and thinking, fuck, we still need another midfield player. Whereas you could address it now and get 2. Now, I know not all the clubs have got this money, but Chelsea and Liverpool can find that money. Well, Like, we could find 150 million quid to sign Lavia and Caicedo. That's what it's going to cost, best part of. You amortize it over 5-year contracts. You're looking at maybe 25 million pound a season for Caicedo, obviously a bit less for Lavia. This is about being smart and making bold decisions. Now, I think Chelsea's ownership has demonstrated they will do it.
Sorry to cut you off there as well. The only other sticking point with the Lavia deal is the kickback to City. And I think there's been potentially an issue with getting that over the line because of the kickback. How much of that has to go back to City straight away? And
have they got? I know they've got a buyback option on him
next season. They've got a
43 and a
buyback
half, isn't
option.
it?
Yeah, they've got a buyback option from next season for plus 45, plus 40 odd million, I think it is.
I think it's 42 and a half, yeah.
But they also get a kickback of up to 20% if he goes any earlier. So I think there's
a lot of money
as well. I think there's something else like that again, because if you, as you said, if you apportion it over at the course of a contract or whatever it is, how much do then Southampton get up front? If they know that they've got to pay out that 20% straight away, how much are they actually being left with?
Yeah.
And I think that might be why they're holding firm on their price.
Well, that's the same thing, because obviously they sold Livramento to Newcastle. Well, we had a big buyback clause in, a big sell-on clause in that. I think the total deal was around £35 million. We took about 15 million quid in sell-on clause. So they got what, 20 million quid for Livramento, which is still a big profit because they only signed him for 4. But as a selling club, you are obviously you have to factor that in. In terms of this question, do I think Caicedo could go to Basuma way? No, because I think Caicedo is a better player than Basuma already. And I think no signings are guaranteed to work out. But I feel Caicedo is as close to a guarantee as you can get that's going to go into a midfield and completely...
Prem anyway.
And completely revitalise it. Mate, a few questions in the chat for you. Do you think Curtis Jones gets more minutes this season?
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to. It's a big season for Curtis Jones. I think the ideal position for me to see him in is that left side of the 8. If we can get him on that left side of the 8 and rotate Europa League games or Premier League games coming off the bench from McAllister in part, I think he will definitely get more minutes.
Nah, for sure. By the way, guys, 164 of us locked in. Haven't even hit 100 likes yet, people. 25 to go. Run that up, guys. Don't freeload the content. Smash a like. It massively helps me out, helps the channel out. And I think we're 2 subscribers away from 4.6k. So there's definitely 2 people out of 160 odd that aren't subscribed. So please do hit the subscribe button. It's free. It takes seconds and it massively helps out. So let's get this to 100 likes and let's hit the 4.6k subscribers as well, guys. Mate, quick question. People have been mentioning it in the chat. Are you surprised at Sterling's troubles at Chelsea? I know he's only been there a season, but he signed from City. He said, look, I'm coming to London. I want to be the main man and stuff. He's on over 300k a week. I'll be honest, mate. I don't like writing players off after the season. This guy has been absolutely shocking, and he was horrendous. Every single game in pre-season, he was shit. Are you surprised at how much he struggled at Chelsea?
Yes and no, to be completely honest with you, and I'll explain why. For me, Sterling was... I'm happy that he's not hit the heights, because obviously there's that side of me that thinks you could have stayed where you was from day one and you could have had it all by now. He still wants the Champions League. That was the push, the pull to go away to a bigger club, win the Prem, win the Champions League. You won everything apart from the Champions League at City. Then go into Chelsea. You wanted to become the main guy. The problem is you went into a Chelsea team that was probably the most unsettled it's ever been. And in recent memory serves, and I think from a Liverpool perspective, even though Liverpool were kind of on the downward trajectory by the time he left us, the squad was fairly settled. It wasn't a competitive and it wasn't a great squad, but it was fairly settled in terms of people knew their roles, people knew their station. Sterling genuinely at the time and of his age felt he was above his station. And again, there was arguments to say you wasn't at that level yet, or you was. But the decision was made for you to move on. You went somewhere else where you was able to then reach that station and become that integral player to a side being competitive and winning things. That side was the most settled side and competitive side you will ever play in your career to date. Then going to a very disjointed, dissettled Chelsea side. He hasn't got the personality. He's not a leader for me, Sterling. He's not, to me, he's not the type of person that is going to unify a dressing room to a common cause to say, all right, lads, I know we had a bad season last season, or he's had a bad season last season. I'm here now. I want to help you lead the way. He needs other people because he's had it all of his career. So it's very easy to, not saying he coasted by any stretch, but it's very easy to be a part of the leadership group when there's 3 or 4 other leaders that are doing all the heavy lifting. You know what I mean? You can be you can be there for representation purposes, but are you necessarily going to be the guy to lead people and have those honest conversations with people about pulling up their socks? And it's very difficult to tell anybody else how to pull up their socks when your own standards have dropped as low as they have. Who's going to listen to you? You've had that many troubles, but you're dropping stinkers week in, week out. You're not saying your reputation, but your credibility goes out the window to an extent. Chelsea has been full of egos. I think he's done fairly well to get, not necessarily the egos, but he's done well to offload the deadwood and the players that were surplus to requirements this summer. And now you're left with players that are here to build the next. He's got a really important season ahead of him because this is where he needs to step up and become a leader. And the best way for him to do that has been putting the performances on the pitch to be able to warrant that level of authority. He hasn't warranted that yet. He hasn't earned it in a Chelsea shirt. So that's why I'm not surprised, because that's not what you buy when you buy Sterling. Sterling, for me, is a luxury player in a Chelsea team when Chelsea are flying high. When Chelsea aren't flying high, you haven't really got the luxury to carry a Sterling that can't carry his own weight.
I mean, I look at Sterling and I felt like, I'm not discrediting what he's achieved in the game, because he's been phenomenal. He was great at Liverpool and he was great at Man City. Yeah, of course, he benefited from being part of a world-class setup with phenomenal players around him. And, I was looking at Sterling and think, well, his finishing's poor, but he'll score a few goals because City create so many chances. He'll probably miss 3, but he'll still bang 2 ins and probably get 5 chances a game. But at Chelsea, where chances are at a premium, you miss 2 chances in a game which don't matter at City. Those two chances that you miss are the difference between us winning and losing games. And that's exactly what he's finding. Yes, he's probably not playing with the same level of player at Chelsea that he was at City. And we're not creating as many chances, but he just doesn't look like he's doing anything. The
ask is as well, City, because of the way City scored a lot of their goals, and I'm not saying that they're not in their pomp anymore, but when Sterling was there, they're at the peak of the powers. A lot of those goals come in such a way that it's very drilled. If you're not setting it up, someone's on the reverse setting you up. So you're either on the receiving end or you're the final pass. Whereas with Chelsea, there's nobody creating those type of opportunities for him. So his bread and butter goals all of a sudden have dried up.
And he's not contributing anything else.
He's not contributing anything else to it. And that's the sticking point. It's like what was so, where you was able to eat and finish your dinner for large parts of your City career was because you had these people that was putting it on a plate for you. So it was, the chances were harder to miss than to score. All of a sudden, you're back in a traditional football club where you've got to either A, create your chances and be a creator in a system, or you're now finishing what to you feels like very unorthodox chances where the odds of you finishing them aren't as high as they was when you was at City. Yeah. So that's where you now find yourself in a bit of sticky water, because you're thinking to yourself, actually, it's a lot more difficult for me because I don't necessarily, and you can't play him in 9. He's not a 9. You're not going to play him.
The amount of times we saw him there a couple of times last season, like I was like at the games, I'm just like, what are we doing? Like this is never going to work. You know that Sterling's not going to be able to play as a false 9. But for me, mate, this season, right now, based on his pre-season and what he's done, he's the highest earner at the club by Lukaku, but he's obviously going out the door. This guy shouldn't be he's 4th choice. He's behind Jackson, he's behind Mudryk, he's behind Madueke. Like he shouldn't be playing. And he's not doing what the other guys are doing. That pre-season, he's not taking people on. He's just running into players. He's giving away fouls. Like if he doesn't have a good season and a real big step up, then this guy needs to be sold next summer. We can't be carrying passengers in their team. And unfortunately, he is one of those. But I mean, mate, I just want to ask you quickly, Chelsea signed a midfielder today, not the one we want necessarily in Caicedo. What are your thoughts on a Tyler Adams deal? Because I think that's taken a lot of people by surprise, certainly. I mean, for myself personally, at the start of the window, he wasn't a midfielder that was on my radar to join Chelsea. But a £20 million relegation release clause, 24 years of age, good leadership qualities, captain of the US, great defensive attributes and stats. I think it's a smart pickup for a squad rotation option. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a good deal?
Literally, you've just took the word out now. I think from a squad player's perspective and bolstering your squad in an area where you're probably the weakest, having that additional option will never hurt Chelsea. Because even though you're not in the Champions League this year, you will probably want to have a good run at those cups. And he will be integral to being able to kind of be in a bit of an anchor point for you. I don't know a great deal about the lad. I know did he come from Leipzig before he went to...
Yeah, he was at Leipzig and then he went to Leeds, yeah.
Leeds, yeah. So, and I've spoke to, I don't know if you know Joe, the Leeds fan who does a little bit of content. He's a good lad. He speaks highly of him as well, and says, he's a tidy player and he's good on the ball and what he offers. I might be completely wrong in this, but did he have a spell injured last season?
Yeah, mate, he missed 13. I think he missed 13 games out with a hamstring injury. I think that same injury, he's still just about recovering from it now. He's in the final phase of his recovery. But
I think that's why because I think there was murmurs when we sold Fabinho. I think I remember seeing lads putting out the content saying Calvin Phillips was on the list, Tyler Adams was on the list, Caicedo and Lavia. And again, I thought that was the first time he was fully on my radar in that respect. So, yeah, I think the injury was one of the reasons as to why we wouldn't fully commit to it. But as you say, for 20 mil, in this day and age, when you're getting players for 24, same age as Declan Rice, you're getting them for north of £100 million.
Mate, I think Adams is at least worth with no release clause, no relegation release clause. That's a 40-50 million pound player.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. It's smart. It's smart business. I'm a fan of it. I mean, mate, let's move a little bit more towards the game. Obviously, still a big backdrop. Caicedo, Lavia, could they? I mean, they could both share the executive boxes at Stamford Bridge. One at Chelsea, one at Liverpool. Who knows what's going to go on there? They might be unveiled. Who knows what's going to happen? But from a Liverpool perspective, mate, how are you feeling at this point in time heading into the game Sunday? It's a big game. We're both still lacking in midfield. It's unlikely that we're going to have any reinforcements registered by midday tomorrow in order to play. How are you feeling with what Liverpool have got so far heading into this Chelsea game?
I think you touched on it earlier on, the fact that we look frightening, and I've said that on streams already this season and before the season's even started. We've got the best front line, and I'll stick my chest. That's the one area of our business or our squad right now where I'm comfortable to stick my chest out and say, in the Prem, we have got the best front line. We've got the best forward line possible. If they're all fit, we've got 5 options that on their day are all quality. My biggest apprehension is we're going to have no game management this season. And I've resigned myself to that. There's going to be no game management. And I'm not saying we're going to play on vibes, because I know that Klopp's system is it's chaotic, but there's a method to the madness in the way that he plays. I genuinely think that this game is going to be probably one of the most open affairs between a Liverpool and Chelsea game in a while. We've had
we're going to get, mate, last 4 games have been 0-0. The 2 cup finals and the 2 games last season. Surely this one's not going to be 0-0.
It can't be. They've been cagey affairs. Don't get wrong, they've had moments of quality, and you can see that Chelsea has still got a quality side. You can see that Liverpool has still got a quality side, but they've not had that ruthless clinical edge. They have been drab in that sense up top, and I think we've kind of become the anti of each other, and we've cancelled each other out quite a lot in recent seasons. And if it wasn't for pens, or if the pens go the other way, Chelsea have got 2 domestic cups in the last couple of years. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it could have went either way on both of those days. I think that this one is got goal fest written all over it. I think, and it often happens anyway. The first opening weekend of the Premier League season and the closing weekend of the Premier League season, goals just get scored for fun. Teams are just happy to be back, or teams are just happy to be signing off. So they're just goals left, right, and centre. I've got a feeling that we could be treated to a goal fest. I am, as a Liverpool fan this season, I've used this expression already, but I'm not excited by what we've done so far, and that could change depending before the transfer window closes. I'm not excited, but I think we are going to still be a very exciting team to watch.
I think the same for both sides. Obviously, Liverpool last season not having as good a season as they wanted. Obviously, come strong towards the end. For us, we had an absolute disaster. Worst season in my lifetime supporting Chelsea. Absolutely shocking. And there's optimism. Pochettino has brought a feel-good factor back around the place. We look fit. We look sharp. A good link-up play with players is starting to form. We've got rid of all the players that don't want to be here, that were causing issues in the camp or causing a bad environment in the dressing room. For the first time in years, we've got a squad of players that all want to be here. And I don't think the impact of that can be underestimated. I think that's such a important aspect for the thing. I think that's really important to have that sort of group of players there. Again, like you, we're lacking in midfield. Christopher Nkunku not going to play this year, more than likely after that knee injury.
That's a big blow. That's a massive blow for you.
That's a huge blow for us. You know, I'd say marquee signing. He wasn't a marquee signing. We signed him back in November, but he obviously arrived this summer. That's a huge blow because we've been planning all pre-season for him to be the main number 10. We haven't bought in another number 10 yet. It looks like Chukwuemeka may well go and play there. And we've got exciting options. Nicholas Jackson's had a really good pre-season, but again, the Premier League's another step up. How's he going to cope with that? Mudryk looks really good. Looks like his confidence is back. Madueke is an exciting player. I like him, but again, he's not featured in pre-season because he had a slight hamstring problem. Will he go straight in? My fear is that if we're going to start Sterling, which is not ideal for anyone concerned. But I mean, mate, you look at Chelsea. And
have you just signed the keeper as well? Sorry, have you just signed the keeper?
Oh, yeah, we signed Robert Sanchez from Brighton last week. Yeah.
So is he automatically just going to replace Kepa? Do you think is that
not just yet? I think Kepa will still start as number one, although Bayern Munich are in advanced talks with Kepa for a loan deal with an option to buy. I don't know if we'll accept that or not, because that means we need to go and find another goalkeeper. But I think the plan is long-term, the plan is for Sanchez to be the number one, I think. But right now, Kepa is going to start the season as number one. And I think Sanchez at some point will displace him, of course. But I mean, mate, Liverpool's backline, who do you think that's going to be for the game? What, Van Dijk, obviously, new captain?
So, yeah, Van Dijk obviously gets the armband. He's the captain. Obviously, Ali's going to be in goal. You're going to get Robbo. I want to say it's probably going to be Konate. Right now, he's fit. So if he's fit, you've got to get him on the pitch. He's in terms of, especially if we're going to start playing this new adapted formation and system, he is the most apt player to really cover that half space that is vacated when Trent obviously bombs into midfield. I think Joel Matip, he suits the 4-3-3 more, but even he's on a bit of a downward spiral. And then I think Trent starts at right back, but will find his way drifted into midfield.
Do you think you need to sign another right back? If Trent's going to play more in midfield, do you need someone else? Because I'm being stupid. Who's the backup for Trent?
Joe Gomez at right back, and then it's more of
not great, is it?
To be fair, he plays the role well. I'm not the biggest Joe Gomez fan either. So when I say that, there's levels to it. He's not Trent in his delivery, but he plays the in the 4-3-3. He plays the way that Klopp wants him to play it. So he's not like, I'm just going to stay. My first job is just to defend. He will still get forward. He will still offer something as an outlet on that right-hand side. For me, the thing is, which might sound really weird, but even if we was to get a replacement right back, I still don't think they get the minutes, because the formation that we use is based on Trent starting at right back and then drifting into midfield. It doesn't start as a three at the back. So in that respect, it's like Trent will always be that guy. You're not going to have a right back and Trent in the same team. You're going to have Trent as the right back that then vacates. The question really, the really important question is, who then is going to be the six and the other side of that CDM role playing, and who's going to be the right side of that centre-back role accompanying him? Because if for whatever reason Konate becomes injured, then we are up shit's creek, because I don't think Joe Gomez has covered himself in glory.
That's what I look at. Like, are you in the market for another centre back? Do you think you need one?
Meant to be, but I think the thing is, I think there's two lines of thinking. I think fans want someone to cover that Trent side because of the Konate, the Matip, and the Gomez thing. But I think those three to cover that side of the pitch, whether we like it or not, over the course of a season, on paper, should be enough. The issue is, when we then revert into that three at the back, the left-sided centre-half position isn't getting the best out of Andy Robertson. He's not able to play the best of his game. So the question really is from behind the scenes is, do we get a left-sided centre-back to then, relieve Verge of some of his minutes, but then also to be able to slot in the three, if we say that is going to end up looking like a back three, and it's going to be Verge in the middle, you're going to have Konate on one side of him, and then you're going to have this, whoever the transfer is.
Do you think Matip's finished now?
Prem level, I'm not comfortable in because we're not going to play the 4-3-3 anymore, and we're not going to have a specialist CDM just sitting there covering in that half space. And as I say, I think we've got more legs in Sloboslai on that right-hand side, but that's not what we've got him in there for either. It's a waste of his talent if we've got him covering backwards instead of making bomb and runs forward and getting in behind Gakpo or in behind Nunes and linking up the play. We really want that side of the pitch to. It's the biggest hole because Trent vacates it, but Trent vacates it with a purpose. Whereas at the moment, the left-hand side, Robbo's vacating that hole. And it doesn't matter which side you're hitting us on. If, like you said before, if you hit us with pace, this Liverpool team are on the ropes. Defensively,
Yeah.
we are. There's no getting away from it. Nothing that's happened in this preseason has shown me that we've learned how to defend any better in this formation than we was back end of last season.
Yeah, no, but I think you're going to, until you sort that out, you're going to be relying heavily on scoring goals. Just very quickly, mate, last 5 minutes or so. What worries you about Chelsea on Sunday? I know we're obviously a bit of an unknown quantity coming off last season.
I wanted to ask you questions. I wanted you to tell me what have you got for me to be worried about? Because I know nothing about the new look Chelsea.
Pace. I think pace is going to be a big thing. Pacing behind, speeding behind with the likes of your Mudryks. Obviously, Nkunku's a huge miss. I like Chukwuemeka. He's a talented boy. I think he's probably going to step into that number 10. But, of course, he's not the same as an Nkunku playing there.
Who's been your standout?
Nicholas Jackson's been great. He's been great in pre-season, Jackson. To be fair, the young kid that was on loan at Burnley last season, Ian Martson, he's been really impressive in the pre-season. A lot of players have done well. Andre Santos, the midfield player that we signed from Brazil last summer, he's obviously now back in the side. He's looked decent. Obviously, Reece James and Chilwell have been good at the back. Midfield, we're a bit lacking still. Obviously, Enzo's great. It's probably going to be, I imagine it's going to be Conor Gallagher or Andre Santos alongside him. I think Mudryk's a threat as well. He looks confident, looks sharp in pre-season. So I'll probably say the main thing to look out for, mate, is the pacing behind. And Nicholas Jackson has been a little bit of a handful as well. But again, he's not played anyone up against anyone like Van Dijk in pre-season. So it's.
Would you say that as a side at the moment, then your best attack in this Liverpool team? Do you think you have got the set?
Yeah, I think we're best at attacking it. I mean, do you know what's mad, right? Last season, despite how many games we lost, we were still in the top 5 defenses in the league. Like, we weren't getting hammered in games. All right, some games you did get battered, but we weren't getting smashed in games week in, week out. We were losing the games by the odd goal here or there. Defensively, we were good. It was the other end of the pitch that was a massive problem. And you look at, obviously, James, I think it'll be James, Thiago Silva, Levi Colwill, and Ben Chilwell starting as the back four. That's pretty good. That's not bad. You got Thiago Silva, who's unbelievable. Levi Colwill, who's going to step up, and I think he's going to be a top player. You guys were looking at him. I don't know how far that interest went. But yeah, look, there's quality at Chelsea, but I think we're a bit of an unknown quantity because we don't know what we're going to get from Poch this season in terms of how well this team's going to perform. Yes, all the signs look good in pre-season, but until you get to the season and you start playing, it's so hard to tell what we're going to be like. What's
your expectation then? Because I've kind of stuck my neck out for, not stuck my neck out, but like I've basically said that I expect Chelsea to have a really good season this year. I'm not sure you will hit the ground running and you will be trailblazers in that sense, but I think you will come good over the course of the 38 game season. You will come good, and because you haven't got Europe to focus on at any point, I think you're dark horses to at least break into the top 5.
Yeah, but for me, I agree on that, and I think getting back into the Champions League has to be the minimum requirement this season. I would caveat that if we don't sign Moises Caicedo, I honestly believe that becomes a lot harder. And I think with the squad as it is right now, I think if we don't get Caicedo, we're going to struggle to finish in the top 4 or 5. I really think it makes that much difference in terms of unlocking Enzo Fernandez, putting him higher up the pitch, and having a defensive midfield player that we just haven't had for years and years. Like, we're still looking to replace Matic. We haven't really replaced Mikel. Like, this is kind of how important this signing is. So for me, top 4 or 5 has to be the minimum requirement. Get back into the Champions League. And there's no reason for us not to take the European Cup, not to take the domestic cups seriously. We're playing once a week. There's no reason not to go strongest lineup in the League Cup every week, every round. There's no excuses for it. And people go on about the League Cup, it's not that great or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, it's the first trophy available, and it sets that winning precedent for the rest of the season. And, it'll be the first trophy that potentially this new group can win together. And it will show that, do you know what? We can actually win. It was the same when Mourinho first come here. He targeted that League Cup like at the time no other real managers had. Top teams would always play shit to their and he come in.
Arsenal, Man U all played our kids, and Chelsea were playing the big boys.
Like Chelsea and Liverpool have been teams that have taken the League Cup seriously. City have obviously taken it seriously, but they won 3 or 4 in a row. So for me, we need to get a domestic cup, and we need to get back in the Champions League. And I think that would constitute a good season. I think we've got the chance of doing that, but the recruitment for the rest of this window is going to have a big outcome on whether we get that right or not. But yeah, look, I'm looking forward to this game. I'm excited. I'm hoping to see a few goals, mate. Very last question before score predictions. I think I've seen today. I could have made this up. I don't think I have. A bid from a Saudi side's come in again for Thiago. Now,
it's not going to happen. It's already been
turfed out, as
yeah.
Would you sell him? I know you're short in midfield anyway, but you need to keep him.
We need to now. I said it anyway a couple of weeks ago, even when before Fabian, he was the one that you keep. I've said he needs to be our Gundogan when it comes to managers minutes properly for once, and that's what I thought we was going to do. I thought we was going to have the reinforcements this summer to have him be that individual that when it comes to the clutch end of the season, you can drop him in games to absolutely be a worldie and be a maestro. Yeah. Play teams off the park because he's fresh-legged, he's not injured, he's not burned himself into the ground doing all the dog work for the last 4 or 5 months, and you can get the most out of him. Same way Pep used Gundogan, and you've seen the fruits of that labour because when it comes to the crunch, he stepped up and he was the difference maker. Thiago has got that level of ability for me to be a difference maker. It's just, do we preserve him long enough to extract what we need out of him? And I think right now we're running the risk of rinse and repeat, and he'll be crocked by November, and then we won't see him again until January. But we can't afford to sell him at this point. No.
Nah, you can't afford to leave yourself needing more players in the midfield than you currently do already. Mate, last thing, score prediction Sunday. What we saying? It's gonna. I said
3-3 in the group chats. It's in the group chats. I've said 3-3. I think it's going to be a goal fest. I think we're gonna look good. And again, we had a 2-2 the other not last season or the season. I think we had it in the
couple seasons ago. Yeah,
seasons ago where we went 2 up. And it looked like, wow, where was that? But you were on top of us. And then the next minute, you just stole 2 back.
Oh, wait, was that Kovacic worldie?
Yeah. Out of absolutely nowhere. I think it's going to be a bit balmy like that. And I think it's going to go topsy-turvy, but it'll be 3-3.
We've got 2-2.
I don't want it to be 3-3 either. We need to get off to a winning start. But it reminds me of Klopp's first season. I think it might not have been his first season. But I think it was when we bought, I don't know if it was Sadio, but we ended up playing Watford, and I think that ended in 3-3. And each time we went behind, then when we pulled it back, then we went ahead, then they pulled it back. I think it could be like one of them type of games.
Yeah, mate, I think there'll be goals in it. I'd love us to get off to a winning start under Poch, but I think this has got a draw all over it. I'm gonna go for a 2-2. But yeah, we'll round this one out here, mate. Pleasure chatting as always. Really enjoyed that one. If the people want to find out more of what you do, where you're at, where's the best place for them to go? Let them know.
Literally, I exist in the ether of Twitter, or X as it's called nowadays, and you can catch me on Solitaire Side Up. But I do most of the home game watch-alongs, couple of away games this season as well for the Red Men TV. You can catch me on Grizz Khan TV, and you can catch me with Saeed and Dan Potts on the 12th Man podcast. So there's a few places. I don't have my own channel. That's somewhere long down the line, but right now you can catch me in all the other hotspots on the eFootball contenters.
Yeah, guys, make sure you check all that out. All be linked in the description below. People, thanks so much for tuning in. Big up everyone in the chat. As always, on the way out, guys, make sure you keep smashing the likes and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back again later on tonight, 8:30, with the main Chelsea daily transfer update. Loads of stuff to dive into, so make sure you stay tuned in for that one at 8:30 tonight. Sunday's going to be great. Let's see what happens. Big up to everyone. Errol, thanks for your time as always, bro. Greatly appreciated. Take care, people. Peace out and up the Chelsea.